right, guys. Episode 8 of the podcast, I believe. I think we're again. I think Mom's gonna be more of a regular now. Everyone seems to like Mother. We got Bobo here, who
You say that like I have a choice.
yeah, not my house. But yeah. I mean, lots to go through. Not too much gaming stuff this week. We were just trying to look for an article before. Really, nothing. There's really nothing in gaming. So I think it's gonna be a lot of other stuff this week, which we got some juicy stuff. I got some juicy stuff. I don't know you.
I'm going to start with your juicy stuff.
We can start with that, but how's your week, Mother? I feel like a lot of people are like,
oh, it was a busy week. Brother went back to school yesterday.
The youngest, Michael, went back. Wanted to take our couch. Luckily, we got to keep our couch,
Get
which
in
is
the couch.
Good. Yeah.
Thank God I didn't pack this thing.
Yeah. My brother moved into a fraternity.
Yes.
First fraternity, junior in college, and from what we could see, it was a shit show. It was a nightmare.
Life-changing experience.
It looked like dude, guys, the beds were hanging from chains off the wall. I was like, oh.
They're calling that a loft.
Loft.
It's like a poor man's loft, in my opinion. Talking about a cop job.
Yeah. Oh, my God, yeah. I don't know. I'll be surprised if Michael stays there the full year. I have to see how that one goes. Michael's not going to deal with that.
No, he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
My week was not awful, but like sleep-wise, I 2 nights in a row I went to bed at like 4:30 because I couldn't sleep. Yeah. You know what it is? I figured it out.
What?
Because I have my coffee.
Because I can't make that room any darker.
Yeah. Oh my God, I've told that story before as to why I blacked out my room. Like my room before, before the cat was here. My room before was like, you know when you see in those commercials when people wake up, it's like, because the light's in the room? That was my room. Now it's like your emo goth teenager who doesn't like the sun. Yeah, it's so dark.
Funny part was, Mike's right next door to you till he went to college.
Yeah.
He would get mad if I pulled the blinds down because he needed the light to wake him up for work in the morning.
Wow, he didn't.
So I had your corner that was pitch black, and hers. His has
it's
the
like if you so when you
door.
go up our stairs, my room is there, well, like opposite, right? So you're looking at mine and Michael's room, the doors, and it's just pitch black and bright.
Yes,
it's like
complete opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I say it can't be. Don't tell me it's because of sunlight or something in your room.
I won't go through the whole story again as to why I did that, but
I call his room the black hole now.
The black hole. Yeah. That's literally what it looks like. It's just a void. But
So 4:30 because.
Oh yeah. So because I started my new diet of like stop eating at 6.
Yes.
Last thing I have is coffee. Okay. There's nothing in my stomach to absorb the caffeine.
Well.
So I was like, why am I up till I literally couldn't sleep. I'd go to bed.
Afraid you're gonna say you're getting up early to eat.
No.
I was so hungry.
I go down at 4 a.m. I have breakfast. Then I go back to bed.
I start grazing at 4.
Grazing, yeah. So it's because my body's just taking all the caffeine because there's nothing to absorb it.
I just picture that door opening with the black.
Sneaking down the stairs with my rice cakes. I need something to absorb all this. Yeah, that's I got the two. I've literally memorized which stairs squeak, so I'm like, can I avoid this one? So.
Ever since we turned off the house alarm.
Yes. For the cat?
No, I'm kidding.
There's a correlation here. Anyway, guys, let's just jump right into news. Let's go from medical news first. A little bit of for me. I have some medical stuff. Okay. I thought this was really cool. Cool, interesting, because I know Mark Cuban kind of started this, but frustrated pharmacists are opting out of the insurance system, saving customers hundreds of dollars a month. I didn't realize pharmacies can do this. I thought they had to go through anything that was insured. No. So basically what's going on is, so let's say a customer comes in and they're trying to pick up their prescription medicine for some medication. Mm-hmm. They can say, well, we have this version that does the same thing, different brand, and you can just pay for it out of pocket. It's super cheap. You don't have to deal with insurance, so you're not paying $500 for some medication when there's a $20 version that does the exact same.
They call it the
generic, but it does the same. Yeah. It's made up of the same things.
Yes.
I did not realize that they could do this, and it's cool, but also this is what Jeff Bezos is doing that with Amazon and their medical team. Yeah, theirs is a little more insurance based. I know Mark Cuban was working on something like this, so. I like this idea because I know we all know Big Pharma's a big issue.
Well, in all fairness to Big Pharma, they put a lot of research dollars into these medications because they have to go through FDA trials. And it's very, very expensive to do that, right? We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars for some of these products. So for them to do it, formulate it, market it, put it out there, and then somebody comes along and copies it and creates generics and competes with them is not really fair. So they had, I don't know if the system's still going, but they instill a period of time when nobody could use that patent so that the pharmaceuticals can make back some of their money, which they do because they charge a fortune for some pills, like for very rare illnesses.
Oh,
right?
yeah, like the diabetes
cancer drugs,
and stuff.
Yeah, but more like, especially these new cutting edge type pharmaceuticals. So then, after a period of time, other companies are allowed to produce generics. So generics are cheaper, obviously, because they didn't have to do the research. They didn't have to do the FDA part. They didn't have to do any of that. It was already approved, the formulation, and they put it out there. So, but you're right. Oftentimes, pharmaceuticals do not, or pharmacists don't feel that they can offer the alternative.
Yeah. So now they're actually like, hey, this one's $200, which is what your doctor prescribed. Mm-hmm. You can get this one that's made up of the same. It's literally the same compounds and everything, and you can use that.
So the pharmaceuticals charge full cost because they know a portion of it, sometimes up to 90%, is going to be picked up by your insurance.
Right.
And it makes you seem like you're not paying as much for that particular drug, but the reality is you pay for the insurance too. So, indirectly, you're paying for the full price through your insurance premiums, whereas eventually with the generic, you're just going to pay, a lower price. But the pharmaceutical companies don't like that because they're not getting their kickback from the insurance companies anymore.
Yeah. But I just thought that was really interesting. I thought that was really cool how... I just never knew that they could do that. I just thought that the pharmacies had to kind of listen to the doctors or whatever is prescribed. Because I don't know how... I know... People at pharmacies do have MDs, but I don't know if they're, or PhDs, I don't know if they have their, like the ability to override a doctor's decision on what medicine to take.
I don't know if they can override it, but if you're talking a generic, it's the same formulation. It's packaged as a generic of blah, 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 whatever medication you're taking. So it's already gone through certain requirements to say that, okay, this is the exact copy of, I don't know, I can't think of a drug off the top of my head, but Xanax. It's a copy of it. It's the same stuff, but it's under a generic name. So pharmacists can do that. They're not really at risk, but sometimes pharmacists know more about these drug formulations
because they're dealing with it all the time. Yeah, and they see.
What they study.
I'm sure they have people that come in that are like, "Oh, my medication, this one's not doing it for me. Do we have alternatives?"
Right.
I'm sure that happens a lot. I just don't know any pharmacists.
Right.
They'd have to ask Mr. Ketchum. I feel like.
Well, I'm thinking of. I always love this story. Our pharmacist down the street, won't mention his name, but. Great guy. I just remember years ago. Now they're all into the nutraceuticals and the supplements and the blends. If you
Can you explain nutraceuticals for the viewers that don't know?
Nutraceuticals are, to me, I'm learning too. It's like the CBDs,
right?
With the added mixtures, formulations that do various things, and supplements similar. I don't know if supplements fall into nutraceuticals as well. I don't know if there has to be a CBD component. But so many of the pharmacists now, the pure pharmacists, not like the CVSs, but like a real standalone pharmacy, they're very much into that. So years ago I went in there and I'd asked about ginkgo biloba.
Pause real fast.
Okay, go ahead.
Nutraceutical is the word, is a term derived from nutrition or pharmaceutics. The term is applied to products that are isolated from herbal products and dietary supplements, specific diets, and food processes, such as cereal soups. So that's like the actual definition.
Okay. So anyhow, I asked about ginkgo biloba, which is an old Asian herb.
Oh, yeah.
It's supposed to be very good for circulation and for the brain. Years and years ago. He's like, I wouldn't give that to my kid.
Ginkgo biloba, yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine. But then afterwards, I walked out and I go, but you'll give them methamphetamines in the form of like Adderalls or other stuff. Like, really, you're telling me ginkgo biloba is that much worse? So I always found that a little bit. I never got to talk to him about it, but I found that interesting that he would prescribe that. Now that could go back to that whole pharmaceutical concept that obviously he makes more money on that than he would make on ginkgo biloba because every supplemental company sells that now and you can get it fairly cheap. But having said that, that's my take on the pharmacies. And
Yeah.
although he has been, they are very helpful. I've gone to them, and sometimes even though the doctor writes something out, they'll tell you more information, like make sure you take it at night because your kid might get an upset stomach, or take it with food, and that wasn't mentioned by the doctor. So, anyhow,
Yeah, those little things.
the little things, but that's why sometimes you pay a little bit extra. There's a pharmacy, we live in Bedminster, over in Bedminster, and I remember years ago they asked for a donation on top of the medication to help them compensate for what they lose out in the pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Which I thought that was very interesting.
What's up, Bobo? Bobo's like, I feel like he's about to bark.
Maybe he has an opinion.
You got an opinion on pharmaceuticals,
So
Bobo?
Bo is on Apoquil for our, I shouldn't have said that, for his skin issues.
Oh. Cover your ears, Bobo.
For his itching.
His
right?
itchy. He's got
And
allergies.
It works very well because he doesn't scratch like he used to. But he gets very excited taking it because it goes in a pill pocket.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's
a little cookie after.
Yeah. Okay. Do you got one?
Oh.
Kind of in the same realm? Your call.
Well, just a short one. Actor Tim Robbins, you know him from Shawshank Redemption?
Let me look up
main
a fit.
character?
Tim.
You know Tim Robbins. Shawshank Redemption.
I have to. I've never seen. I'm not a movie buff like
Oh,
you.
no, Chris.
Tim
Robbins. Shawshank Redemption.
This guy? Really?
No, that's Robinson. I said
Oh.
Tim Robbins.
Robbins.
He was also in Top Gun, the original.
This guy. Yeah.
Okay. So he played the lead in Shawshank Redemption. Much older now. So he reposted. He had a tweet. Hey, SAG-AFTRA and at Actors Equity. Now that the CDC has changed its policy, it might be time to end your discriminatory vaccine mandates and allow those that you have marginalized and excluded to work again. So those are the two unions associated with the Actors Guild, with acting.
Right.
And interesting that somebody from Hollywood would take a stand, anti-vax stand, especially he tended to be a very liberal person. But he reposted the new COVID-19 guidance for CDC focuses on individual decisions. I'll just read them.
I have to. I'm interested.
Well, I'm wondering.
Interested. Go ahead.
The first one is those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine.
Those exposed. So hold on. Go back real fast. So this is the new guidelines as to if you aren't vaccinated
From CDC regarding coronavirus, regarding the virus.
Okay, so
COVID-19.
just general. Okay, go
General.
ahead.
Okay.
So
those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine. So in the past, if you were around somebody,
you
it
had to
started
quarantine
with
for
14
14 days,
days.
right?
Then they reduced it to 10. Now it's don't even worry about it. The second one is unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people.
vaccinated people have the same guidance
As unvaccinated. So in other words,
So they're the same.
doesn't really make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference. Go ahead.
Number 3, students can stay in class after being exposed to the virus.
Can stay in. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so mind you, up until May of
Yeah.
of
So
this
now we're at
past
the
year,
point.
months ago, Mike was still wearing a mask every day to class. Now all of a sudden,
It's fine.
you've been exposed. It doesn't matter. Go to class. Finally, it is no longer recommended to screen those without symptoms. So no more having to go anywhere where they're shoving something up your nose or taking your temperature.
Right.
Okay? So we went from, and that's August 11, 2022. I think, what was it, May?
Now here's a question though,
That-
and I'm gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Do you think that this is because, not that, do you think that they're kind of expecting a herd immunity at this point? I mean, given it is after you put a vaccine.
It's not that they expect it, it's that they're now admitting it. Something that we knew over, a year and a half ago, that herd immunity was the best. And I think they're also starting to realize, as more and more, as I saw, foreign countries are now going to start publishing their vaccine adverse reactions.
Vaccine. Oh yeah. Which
So I
Pfizer
think
already
they
released a lot of theirs.
See,
so.
they had to legally.
Yeah.
I think the tsunami that's coming, I think they're trying to head off a little bit. But there's also, as a side story, the CDC is in the process of issuing all these new guidelines for themselves and new communications, because they're pretty much saying, well, we have a poor communication strategy.
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
That's what they're basing it on. So they want to revamp the CDC.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's right in the sense of Tim Robbins is right in these are their guidelines. So it's nice to hear that they've at least admitted this. Now, again, this isn't widespread knowledge, unfortunately. And this is where the checking out of COVID kind of hurts us in the sense of like everything has a like any like Twitter, Facebook. There's a thing for COVID-19. I don't know anyone who's actually clicking on that anymore. Like
yeah,
it's just exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're not paying attention,
Yeah.
and you're not looking at it regularly, like you probably don't even know this unless you.
Yeah, I mean.
So YouTube, when you try and demonetize us, that's the CDC telling us that.
Well, I will say it was posted on NPR.
Oh, okay.
NPR is, NPR is
NPR.
government
Pretty big,
sponsored, but it's
like a
total
main
right.
news
It's a
for
very
stuff that has to get
biased
out.
news organization. They don't even hide it. So for them to post this is interesting, but also if you compare it with their last posting, and I gotta believe it was around May. It's like night and day. So I'd like to know what happened in the last 4 months where we go from, as I said, Mike wearing a mask in the classroom up to graduation. Or, I'm sorry, not graduation, up to finals.
Now, could you make the argument, though, that it was, again, playing devil's advocate here, that the vaccines were pushed and we didn't expect herd immunity to come so soon, quote unquote, and that's why now they're easing up on a lot of this stuff?
Well,
because we knew herd immunity was going to come eventually. We didn't know when it was going to come.
I want to say it was the spring of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, springtime. No, spring of 2020, because this broke out like around November 2019, as far as we know. December, January, that time frame. So in the height of it, around 2020, Dr. Yan, who is a doctor from Johnson & Johnson, I believe, research VP, or maybe it's Pfizer. I have to look that one up. He put out a video and he was taken off of YouTube. He put out a video where he basically said, and he's the head of the research for epidemiology and vaccines, basically, that we have already reached herd immunity. So, and this was before they had a vaccine. So his argument was, we know these viruses, let it go. You're better off treating the sick. Let everybody get the virus, because most of the people are not going to die from it.
Right.
They're not even going to get very sick from it.
I think people would say that that's the disingenuous answer, like, oh, you don't want people to die. But my argument to that, to anyone that says that, is like, I think one of the hardest things to be in politics in general is you have to cater to the masses. You can't really let emotions decide whether you do or do something. So when you have to weigh the lives of many people, I mean, he's completely right. Like, unfortunately, people are going to die, but when it comes to the massive amounts of people and the odds of a very fast vaccine pushed out and it causing more problems, you have to weigh your options there. And I know it's unfortunate that people did unfortunately lose their lives to COVID. Usually it was due to other precursors like obesity and stuff like that. But when you're talking about 300 million people, not even including the whole world, you got to make decisions like that. So yeah, I would agree with that guy.
Right, but you have to go back, and that's bigger than this podcast. There are a lot of questions about how many people actually died from COVID.
From COVID, and not that's the one answer we'll probably never get.
Right.
How many people actually died from COVID, and how many died from the comorbidities that were accelerated by COVID.
Or the classic story of the man who was brought into the hospital in a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Did he die from COVID? Or did he have
with
COVID?
Was it hurting his recovery? Like, what were the effects?
No, not even that.
Exactly.
He picked it up in the hospital while he was there after a motorcycle accident.
Oh, I see.
So that's the type of stories and data that we're never going to have. Nor were you told that the person was in a motorcycle accident. You were told he died of COVID.
Right.
And that bumps up your numbers. And this was going on
and a lot of hospitals were getting kickbacks dependent on how many COVID cases they had. So, again, I have...
I'll tell you an anecdotal story. Just recently, a friend of mine, her brother was sick. He went to his regular doctor who tested, recently meaning the summer, went to his regular doctor, tested him for COVID. He did not have COVID, and he didn't think he had it. He was dizzy and whatever. Right. Turns out he was having a reaction to his medication. But he still didn't know that. Next day, his son took him to the hospital because he was getting worse. Hospital in New Jersey tested him and told him, you have COVID. So, went home. There was nothing he could do. Just make sure you don't get worse. He went home. several weeks later, he goes back to see that doctor, his family doctor, tells him the story. You said I was negative, went to the hospital. The doctor literally leans into him and whispers, he goes, they tell everybody they have COVID because they get more numbers. Yeah. And he asked the guy, did you see the test?
No.
They didn't see the test. They just, it was a test was performed.
Oh, well, come on.
But he didn't tell him. You know, you didn't see the actual test to say, here's your COVID test. They just verbally told him, yep, you tested positive for COVID. And they got a general practitioner saying you get money. Now, is this fact? Did I fact check it? No. But I've been hearing many of those stories between hospitals and doctors that they do get money for it. And there's an incentive. And it's a warped incentive. It was originally given to hospitals because they were tackling an unknown illness. They were not initially aware of just how bad it is, right? And then that just morphed into, we're going to keep chugging money in there the more you treat somebody. And the sicker they are, the more money we're going to give you. Which, as the CDC and others are finding out, that probably wasn't the best way to handle this crisis. So, a lot of work needs to be done before we have the next... Oh, and by the way, I just read before we started the podcast, the Navy is requiring all the servicemen be vaccinated against monkeypox.
Monkeypox, wow.
Just the
now,
Navy.
we still have under 5,000 cases in the entire country. Did you know that?
Monkeypox, yeah.
5,000 cases, and now we're getting vaccinated for that.
Yep. Mandatory.
Now, on the bright side, though,
yeah,
we've had a monkeypox vaccine for a lot of years, right? Because this is not the first time.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't
so
think
that
it's
one we know is not. That's been through trials, so it's probably a vaccine that won't. Fair to say, it's probably just a regular vaccine that you should. We probably all have anyway. I don't know if I got one.
Well, no, nobody.
I didn't have that when I was a kid.
This is a very rare thing.
Yeah.
We don't.
But we have a vaccine.
Again, we don't live in a country. We talked about this last time. We don't have certain illnesses, or we've never had an issue with them that we've had to massively vaccinate.
I thought
monkeypox
children. Was in here at some point. That's why. Oh, okay.
Not enough. Hitting enough of I don't even think 5,000 is enough of a population.
Oh yeah, no
to
way.
be vaccinating kids before they go to school. So
5,000 out of 350 million is like what 0.00005%.
And just as an aside, chickenpox. Every kid usually gets chickenpox at some point, right? And we used to, my generation, and when I was a kid, you naturally exposed your kid to it when they were young. It was annoying, but they were sick for a week, and now they have lifetime immunity. You guys, we wound up doing these boosters and whatnot, so you don't get the bad chickenpox. You had a mild case, Kenny had a mild case. But now you got to worry about shingles when you're older. Yeah. So, sometimes the best is to just get it over with, especially with young children. And they can handle it, and it's annoying, but and I only say that because monkeypox does go away. I think on its own. Yeah, right. On its own. They showed a man where it was progressing on his face. It ain't pretty, I'll give you that. But it does eventually clear through the system. Yeah.
Probably a lot of scarring in the end, too.
I don't know, but, I
think of bad acne. It's probably like that, but worse.
But they warned us of that with the chickenpox. If you scratch it, you'll have pock marks. Which, I have some subtle ones around me, but... Versus we didn't have the chickenpox vaccine as kids.
All right, ready? Here's one from me.
Okay.
Trump search worsens FBI surveillance politics headache with GOP. I hate how the wording of this, but I thought this is kind of exactly what we said last week. So the more we're finding out, since I got this article, they unsealed the affidavits. They did a lot of things, the search warrants and stuff. Basically, it turns out...
I don't think they did the affidavit, did they?
I think they did at this point.
The search warrant they did, I'm not sure...
I know they opened something.
Or it was very redacted. It might have been
something,
very redacted.
Yeah, something was up. But basically what they're saying is they ended up finding nothing, essentially.
Right.
But this is where it's weird. So it's almost like they changed... This really looks bad for the FBI. So, and here's why. Basically, from what I heard, or from what I've read in a couple articles, so our president was... I wish I had all these articles, but the president was allowed... All presidents are allowed to take something out that's information that can kind of leave, like it gets passed from White House to President's House just for reading purposes. Or
for their libraries and for their memoirs and whatnot.
Exactly.
So they're allowed to take, they can declassify the information, has to go through the archives, and they have to okay that. National Archives.
And then all of a sudden, once he got out, so I want to say within the last 6 months, they decided to change this rule. Mm-hmm. And then because of the change, they said, oh, well, Trump's got this, so let's go raid the house. That's basically the timeline of what happened.
That's what they're saying?
Yeah. So that's basically... Now, just so this is Politico. I don't know how
Liberal, very liberal.
Liberal? Okay. So
Tend to lean liberal.
for them to lean liberal on this one's pretty... or lean...
Well, every now and
conservative
then you
a
get a writer that's somewhat fair or has to eat crow.
So, right, so it's called... It's called Section 702 is the actual law that allows them to do they can declassified stuff can be passed, but the only thing that it sounds like Trump did kind of mess up on is that you only get it out for a certain amount of time, and I think they shortened the time, or at some point there's a timing issue, and that's why they said, okay, we can go in and get this. But from what I'm looking at, the information in there tends to be, or seems like, again, this is all secondhand information, it seems that it's like flight information, like on flights.
Oh.
So, we don't know how important that is. Like, I don't know if that's worth doing an FBI raid over to get. I mean, it is information, but it's not anything too crazy. That's like, it's not like nuclear codes, which is what people were saying.
The FBI is also looking kind of bad because they've already been in there once. And they suggested putting a lock on the door. That might have been the Al-Qaeda organization. Trump and his people have said all along, if you need anything else, just contact us. Yeah. They've never said, no, you can't, or you can't come in and see it, or you're being a pain, or whatever. They went from, oh, you might want to put a lock on the door, to we're searching your house when you're not there.
It's a very, like, when you look at the timeline of stuff of what's been said, like if you go back 6 months of what was allowed to be taken and like looked and stuff, it makes the FBI look worse than our past president. But the problem is all the news outlets are saying, oh, this is it for our former president. Like, they're just, fueling a fire for our president.
Well, because they're covering for the FBI.
They have to.
Because the FBI has been doing this gibberish, and it's all starting to come out. We saw what was going on in Michigan.
It makes you realize that our FBI, like the system, is so out of whack.
Yeah,
and
it's been completely politicized.
You can make the again. I'm not gonna go off the they're bad people or whatever, because again we can't make that claim. But I would say that there's definitely some kind of disconnect in an FBI, in how things work in the FBI, that needs to be fixed. And I don't know who's at the top. I don't know who they're.
Christopher Wray.
Christopher Wray. We gotta fix some stuff.
Who was appointed by Donald Trump,
right.
by the way, and was never removed from that position, and should have been, and he should resign for all the stuff that's been going on. And this isn't just the only problem with the FBI.
Yeah.
They're exposing the plot with Governor Whitmer that was supposed to make Trump look bad during the 2020 election. That this was an FBI concocted event to kidnap the Governor Whitmer, and find these. They were trying to make it look like Trump supporters were doing it, radicals. Yeah,
and this is redacted.
Yes,
like this is a fact.
This is a fact.
This is something that we know about. This is not made up.
The case is coming out, and you could see the FBI were plying these, low-income individuals to do this stuff, and now it's coming out in court. And all these people are being exonerated from it because they're being shown they were entrapped by the FBI. Right. And the person who headed that became the person who headed in Washington, D.C. of the FBI just before the January 6th riot, which now we're hearing more of a police officer. I just saw, I didn't even read the whole story, who was crying and made a whole big thing about the January 6th. It turns out at some point he put on a MAGA hat and was asking this group of Oath Keepers to help him get people out of the building, and the Oath Keeper people came in and did it. Why was he switching? What was that all about? So there's a lot of things that the FBI has been doing that's extremely questionable, to the point of now they're starting to see the systems and procedures they use. Right. And one of the things, back to what your original story is, why they want to see the affidavit, they don't want to redacted, they want to know what they said to the judge. And did they put in there that Trump has been, people have said, come in anytime you want? If that's not in there, the judge has a case to say, if that in fact is true, I wouldn't have signed off on the search warrant. Right. I would have had you go back and ask the people to go in. So that's why we always, you always have to follow up and see what exactly did they use to request the judge, not the search warrant that he signed off on, but what justified that search warrant. Yeah. And now we're finding that there really wasn't. The only thing that justifies the warrant is the timeline changed of what's allowed to be taken out, because like the FBI changed it. So now it's like you can't give
it's like if I rented you something for a year and then I said, well, I'm going to change my mind to 9 months and I'm not going to tell you until it hits the 9-month mark.
Right.
And then once it's the 10th month, I'm coming to go get it. That's basically what they did.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But then they need to go to President Obama's house and get the 30 million documents that he took if the rule has changed. Then you have to go to President Bush's house and get whatever he took. Right. If you change it, whatever you do for one,
the argument that they're trying to make for that is like, well, Donald's is a lot. I'm sorry, that's rude of me. Our former president, his were more egregious. Some people were saying nuclear codes, which ended up not being true. As far as we know, there's no nuclear codes. We think it's just flights he's been on.
30 million documents. There's things in there about Libya. There's things in there about Syria. There's things in there about nuclear deals with Iran. All that was under President Obama's watch.
Right.
Okay? Let alone George W. Bush, which was the terrorism, 9/11. There's a boatload of information that many of them took. They probably declassified, or I believe, and I'm not well versed in this. And mind you, it's fluid. I'm getting different stories.
Yeah, that's the hardest part about this one. There's literally every single article is different. Like one's nuclear codes, one's trading, trading goods and stuff, and then they go, oh, was he trading to some that were like, oh, he was using his business. It's like, what? Like, no one has the answer right now. The one that I've seen the most of is that it's literally just flights that he was on, and he wanted to make sure he still had records of those flights on Air Force One.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. It's one of those things how I think the FBI, this is my opinion, the FBI went in maybe to make him look bad or whatever, but they knew that they knew that they could make him look bad by just going to his house. That's all you have to say is FBI raid, and then people go, oh, because there was a famous quote by our former president that was, if you get raided by the FBI, you should not be allowed to be president. So it's kind of like eating. It's like making him eat his own words. But what stops me from being the current president and going, well, he said that he's going to be my competitor when he runs again in 2024. Mm-hmm. Why don't I just call an FBI raid on him? Right? I'm not saying that's what our current president did. I'm just saying, what stops me as a sitting president to just say to the head of the FBI, go raid this guy because it makes him look bad.
And you reach a point where even the most anti-Trump ardent, maybe not the most, but people who are, this guy's driving me crazy, I didn't vote for him and I don't plan to vote for him, they're even reaching a point based on polling that enough. You've tried impeaching him 2 times. Yeah. He's in 3 court cases right now, and now you're using our taxpayer-funded FBI to kick in doors of a house when he's not even there. You better come up with something, and now we're finding they're not coming up with anything. Now, so even a lot of people are starting to say, aren't we getting a little extreme here?
Here's another one that bothers me. So people, one of the arguments is, the argument is all of this is null because what president gets in all these court cases? Like, why would our president be in 3 court cases? Every president has been in court cases. Yeah, it's usually what happens is the government actually takes control of the court case. So there's usually a representative for Obama or Bush or whatever. The difference is because Trump has had businesses and a lot of those kind of correlate to they try and here's the difference. Trump was a very successful and is a very successful businessman. And when you're at that level of business, you are dealing with government. Whereas before being a president, Obama and Bush probably weren't dealing at level. Their businesses, whatever they were.
They had no businesses.
Yeah, they didn't have anything at that point.
President Obama
not to that level where they're dealing with government.
He was a senator. He went from law activist to a senator to the White House.
So that's why it looks bad for Trump because he is the business, so he does physically have to go to court. Obviously, as people representing him, and honestly, we can all agree that some of the people around him have done some pretty.
There are many people who are shocked that they haven't found any real dirt on him.
Oh yeah,
nothing that has quote unquote stuck. Now, there's people who with Trump syndrome was going to tell you, oh, they found all this stuff. They really haven't.
Yeah, if they did, he'd be in prison.
and I'm not saying the man's squeaky clean or whatever, who knows. But to your point, there have been district attorneys, like the one in New York, who said when he was elected, I'm going to get him for something. I'm
we talked about this last week.
But that's basically, that's
and then
their
you find
attitude.
nothing. And then,
right.
So
but you also can't bring, it's very difficult to bring a charge when a president is in office.
Yeah, because you have...
They're covered by an immunity because of their position. But once they get out, no holds barred. And that's why many of them insulate themselves from any prosecution that's going to stick.
They give themselves, what's the executive power that allows you to grant amnesty or whatever? That's what banning God.
Impunity.
That's
It's
okay,
impunity.
that's what it is.
While you're for them, that's he pardoned
The pardon.
Roger Stone.
Yeah, all those guys.
Actually,
Lil
they didn't
Wayne.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So every president
it's
can pardon
weird
people.
how the executive order works. I do think that there's got to be a little bit more of a crackdown
Executive
on.
pardon.
Yeah.
Pardon.
The executive order crackdown, given. We've had executive orders for a while now, but
Executive orders is different than pardon.
yeah, I'm just saying in general.
Oh, in general. Yeah.
Executive orders. I don't understand 100% how they work, but they seem very easy to do based on this president.
This is the difference, okay? So right now, the current president is issuing a lot of executive orders.
117 as of like last year.
And what that's highlighting is just how biased our courts are.
Now remember, before Biden took office, he said any president that uses an executive order should not be president. How many executive orders has he done? 117.
Yeah, I mean,
as of like as of like December. Right. So I don't know what it is now, but
why do you do executive orders? They're meant for emergency situations or unusual situations.
Now it's used to get around or get what you want.
Well, because they can't get things legislated because that's how our government is supposed to work. The people decide, and if your representative, if they can't vote on these things, then your option is to do an executive order. And all presidents have done them, but if you recall, President Trump was constantly being hauled into court.
Always.
All his executive orders were being questioned.
I think he was the most... He had like 100 and something court cases, and the only one that he actually was guilty of was like a traffic ticket or something that they took him
that's
on.
different than executive orders.
Yeah,
executive orders like the Muslim ban. So he banned people from coming in from terrorist countries.
That was like early.
These were terrorist countries that were identified under the Obama administration, and he said, "No, we're going to put a ban on it because the number one job of any president is the safety and security of the citizens of the country. Okay, that's your first most important job." And he had decided that we have to stop this terrorist acts and whatnot, and put this ban in. Immediately went to court, just kept going through the ranks. They were shooting it down, and it's the level, it's the type of judges, if they're biased one way or the other, and it's how our system works. If you take it through certain district courts, they're going to act more favorably one way versus the other. And, one of the policies he put through was Remain in Mexico. It was working. Both parties said it was working for our border.
Right.
And that was immediately reversed when the first president came in. But we've gone to court. Texas took him to court and whatnot. Not as an aside, it was just disregarded anyhow, and they wound up taking Remain in Mexico away.
Right.
So we're really reaching a point where something's got to give, not just in the legislative side, but also the judicial side. We're seeing a lot of things being uncovered from issues with our past president. We have some real problems in our republic that need to be addressed. And I'm not saying that because, you're a sore loser on one side, blah, 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 blah. It's got to work for both sides.
That's the whole point.
Right.
Yeah,
you can't... It. Right.
Yeah.
Hence the problem back to your original thing with the FBI and the CIA. The organization has become biased, ergo it's politicized. Right. It's used for certain people, not others, and that's a problem.
Most biases start with money. That's usually where it starts. How are we going to get more money out of this?
Well,
did you see Nancy get pressed on insider trading? Did you see that clip?
Oh
my God! Where she like puts the mic down.
Oh
she's like, oh my God! Someone goes, she's having this long conversation, and someone goes, "Can you talk about insider trading?" She goes, "No."
Yeah.
Just like that.
No,
well, so it's like, oh my God! So that's where the biases start.
Yeah.
That's where it starts. And I think someone on Rogan, said this.
And by the way, we have an ethics committee.
Yeah.
In the legislative branch.
Which clearly is also biased.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had the original HHS secretary under President Trump that he nominated was a doctor. They drilled him out. The ethics committee gave all the information. He should not be appointed the head of the HHS because he took some personal flights. He had some investments in pharmaceuticals that were questionable. Okay. So, no, wait. And now you see this going on, and you got to ask yourself, where is the same ethics committee? Right. And how are they allowing this? And I don't just mean her. There are plenty.
Oh, yeah.
That are
Republican and
egregious.
Democrat. Yeah, both
egregious.
sides.
That why am I paying, again, with my tax dollars for an ethics committee if they're just going to pick and choose? Don't bother. Give me my tax dollars.
Someone on Rogan said it really well, speculated this. Oh, actually, I think it was Tim Dillon. The reason that Nancy's still in there and doesn't want to leave isn't because she likes the power or the insider trading. It's because the second she leaves, they're going to go through all of her stuff. They have to. Right? They must.
Possibly.
So she uses the amnesty of being the head of the...
No, they're not...
There's got to be a certain level to that.
They're not judicially protected. Not your representative. No, many of them have been removed. Remember Al Franken for sexual harassment of a woman? No, they can kick you out if they want to. You can go after a sitting member.
I don't know.
It's the president that gets that.
Yeah, but there's a reason that no one's gone into Nancy's stuff. Like, there's got to be a reason. The DUI from her husband, and no one pressed her on that. Like, there's reasons for this stuff. She has some kind of protection. Don't know what it is.
Well, she's the very powerful person in a very powerful position. In a spot that
it's essentially the most
is run
powerful
by the
position.
Democrats, basically.
It's the most powerful position amongst senators, right?
She's a representative. She's the House of Representatives. Senators is
what do you call them?
Chuck Schumer.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
What is she? Because she's a higher power than all the other ones.
She's the Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House, thank you.
So in the event that something happens to the President, Vice President, Speaker of the House then takes the role.
Why would it be
of
her,
executive
not
branch.
Chuck Schumer? Why would it,
because that's how the Constitution
That's just how it worked? Okay.
Well, the thought process is the House of Representatives is closer to the people. Because we have more representatives, because it's reflective of the number of people in each state, right? So, for instance, Alaska has one representative, because it's a small population.
Is it Sarah Palin?
Well, they're going through a process right now. Their representative died, and they're having a special election, and they're also having the November election. So they have two going on with the same people. It's unusual. But, so that just gives you an idea of some states only have one, but that's because of the number of people. So they allocate your representation, whereas senators are two from each state, regardless of the size of the state. So there's only two from California, and California's huge. There's two from Rhode Island, and it's very tiny. So what's closest to the people, meaning how many people's voices are being represented, it's through the House of Representatives. So the founding fathers that wrote the Constitution said, well, we want the people of the country to decide, and when you've lost the president and the vice president, Senate is not as closely attached to individual groups as the House of Representatives because it's more district-wide. So, to your point, that's a very powerful position. There have been many people, many men, because I think she's the first woman, who have been in that position on both sides. It's a very powerful position, and you get elected by the members of the House of Representatives. And when you have the majority party, she got picked. And there's a lot of insider gaming that goes on, and she makes promises to one group and another group. And when she was first reinstated, she had a lot of problems with the squad members because they were making demands. Whoever's in that position, you have to appease a lot of people. And you have to get majority, or popularity vote, if you will, to get that position. And there's a lot of seniority involved in it, too. She's been around. She knows the system. She knows how to work the system. And that's what keeps her in place. But also all the more reason why somebody like that should not be abusing that power to line her bank account.
But I think, the honest problem is that we have people in power for 40 plus years.
I agree. And
something's got to be done about that. There's
ridiculous.
No way.
I like Senator Grassley. He's the one who's investigating the FBI.
Yeah.
He's from...
what do you think it should be? 5 years? 5?
No, I don't think it's... term limits, yes.
Yeah, there's got to be a term limit. But I will say that there are some politicians in there.
Years exist. They can only serve a certain number of years. It's how many times you can have those terms, right?
Gotcha.
So representatives every 2 years. So it's
4 years. Oh, 2 years, right?
Yeah, because they have 2 year elections. Right. And then the Senate is longer. I think the Senate's 6 years. But having said that, it's how many times you could do it.
Right.
And Pelosi's been representing California. I don't know.
But let me say this though. I don't know how I would feel if, let's say, I did 2 years and then I waited 10 years to do another 2 years. The changes of let me catch up on the last 8 years.
No, but what you can do is you can do 5 terms. That's 10 years. You could do 5 terms.
Right, so you could do
right?
all 10. Yeah, okay,
Right.
I mean, that's fair. I'd say that.
To me, I feel there should be an age cutoff. And the reason term is the best, but we've got people in there. Nancy's in her 80s, Dianne Feinstein's in her 80s, and I like Senator Grassley, that's my point, and he does a great job. He's 83, 84 years old.
Got to be in there too.
Mitch, he's not in his 80s yet, I don't think. I think he's in his late 70s.
He's been there. He's been there forever too, right?
There are some, our old New Jersey one, Lautenberg, Senator Lautenberg, Representative Lautenberg. He's no longer alive, but at the time, he used to have to be like walked onto the subway.
Oh.
He was so you reach a point where, and gifted individuals, don't get me wrong, but it's time for some new blood. I think a republic, you need to have new voices, new people coming in. And that's why I don't have a problem with some of the young, even the liberal ones. Well, their message is not resonating on a majority level, but you need fresh and new ideas. And that's why you have balance of power and you have checks and balances so that you can bring new voices in. Everybody gets to speak. Everybody has opinions. Some of these old people, they plant themselves in there. And we've gotten to a point like Maxine Waters. It's almost assumed, or Lisa Murkowski, the woman up in Alaska who's fighting. Her father had that position. So he used all his clout, all his...
To give her that position.
To roll it in so that she would be elected. Okay, where is it assumed that should be a family business? If they're voted by the people, etc., that's great. But there's a lot of extra kudos you have when your family member is pushing you for that. You have a lot of contacts in the media. You have a lot of cronies that you could go out there and say, hey, I'll give you this if you vote my daughter or give money for my daughter's campaign. So it's become a family business, a lot of nepotism, and I don't think that's what the intention was when it was set up.
Agreed. We just talked, that had to be at least half an hour.
Easily.
You got one?
Well, along the lines of, this is kind of like a side one, Representative Wenstrup, he's from Ohio. He brought up a very good point about that recent IRS reduction.
Yeah, so we talked about that last week with the climate bill. They added 80,000 IRS agents.
Yes. They say, meaning the individuals that supported this bill, mostly Democrats, that it's to help bring more money that's due the government from all these tax cheats. We're going to go out there and get all that money that's legally due the government. And he brought up a good point. And he said, how about instead of that, why don't we go after the $400 billion with a B of COVID relief money that was fraudulently given out to people, mostly foreigners.
Right, people who came into this country.
No, just to foreign companies. So you apply for PPP loans, individuals. Reese Witherspoon, her company got money, PPP money.
Right. We had a problem with this on YouTube too. Someone, I think the Paul brothers at the time and Mr. Beast's channel got that kickback money too for COVID. Yeah. So hold on, you don't
Planned
mean
Parenthood.
Yeah, you don't mean okay. So you said that kind of weird. You're right, but I think that will confuse some people. It's not COVID. It's not money that has to do with COVID. It's relief money for the businesses that were failing.
Right.
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
Because I thought you said like they were giving money to foreigners because of COVID problems. No, it's money given to businesses.
Right, and some of it was given to foreign entities, right?
Yeah.
Through unemployment, well, also unemployment benefits. No, I'm not saying just businesses.
Yeah.
So all the people that got the $2,000 checks, okay? Some of those people were foreigners. They're not even American citizens. Or they might be children of citizens living in another country. And the IRS immediately sent out the money. So it wasn't even benefiting all American citizens.
Yeah.
But we're talking $400 billion of money.
It's funny that doesn't sound like a lot anymore when we're giving 1.2 trillion to once you hear that T number you go, oh shit.
That's not the amount given out. That's the amount that's fraud.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh god. Yeah.
So it's a very good point. If we're really concerned, and if you really aren't using the IRS and politicizing that like you do the FBI to go after people like you and me and get extra money here and there.
Question, real fast, might be a stupid question. If we have $1 trillion, the government says...
No stupid questions.
Yeah. So if the government we're $1 trillion in debt, it's more than that, but $1 trillion in debt, but we print $1 trillion and we give it back to just the people. Let's not even say overseas and stuff. Is that technically, do you add $2 trillion to the debt, or do you... So, like, if it goes back into the circulation of America, is that technically adding debt, or is that just money back into the circulation? See what I'm saying?
What a stupid question.
This podcast is over.
That's how you create inflation.
Inflation, right? So that causes the inflation, but your debt doesn't go up, right?
The country's debt?
The country's debt wouldn't go up because it's in circulation of the country.
Well, if you print the money,
right? But
no, that's part of monetary policy. You can print money. The government can print money and flood it out there. It's supposed to be backed by
something, right?
Right, by the strength of the country, to some extent. But that's how you can control monetary policy. Having said that, they've put so much money out there that dollars becoming worth less and less and less.
Right.
That's
and the inflation is from that. Right.
Yeah.
But the debt doesn't go up if you take that $1 trillion that's in reserve and throw it back into the country, because it's not going anywhere.
Well, it does in the sense that, you also have things like treasuries out there that the government has to buy back, and they need money to do that when they issue treasuries.
Right.
You give them money, and they give you a treasury bill, and that means something, but then is it really worth what it was worth before? And when we owe, as a government, as a country,
so I think it's
or 13 trillion we have to? Like
are we
$13
really?
trillion? Right. And when we borrow from countries like China. Although, as an aside, China is having a very bad economic meltdown, almost worse than ours right now. You won't hear a lot about it, but
our national debt is 30 trillion.
30 trillion? Yeah, I mean it's
I did not realize it was that
it's
bad.
an incredible number that, normally you could balance it with, we have value in our country, but we're moving into a territory where people are starting to question the value of the U.S. and are they justified at 30 trillion worth of debt? Because it's not going down at all. And you watch the next couple months, they're going to talk about another stimulus package. And by the way, is it me? Every day I go online and I see another story. Oh, we're giving $400 million more to Ukraine. Like it's pocket change.
Yeah, I know.
President Biden has decided to give another $400 million. Every week we're giving them millions of dollars. It's all just being laundered. It's just going to it's not going to the war. Maybe $1 million of it will go pay for some ammunition. I mean, there will be a reckoning for this Ukrainian war. And the money that we as Americans have dumped into it, that now it's just like ridiculous.
I don't know what's going on over there anymore. Like, they don't even talk about it.
No, it's not.
Yeah. It's not even trending anymore.
No, but that's why. And each week it's President Biden just gave another $400 million.
Yeah.
$400 million next week. Yeah. So they're talking. I started to say they're talking about another stimulus package because of the recession, and we got to help Americans, which is true, but that's not the way to do it. By throwing more money, you just print more money, and the inflation just keeps going up. So you send me. Here's a perfect example. So our current president, signed an executive order for electric vehicles, a $7,500 credit if you get an electric vehicle. Okay. The car companies raised the prices by $8,500.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just, yeah. Oh God.
So you're in the hole $1,000.
Yeah,
right?
You're still.
That's your answer to a recession.
Nice
job. Give me $7,500 for.
That's just not thinking. More. Yeah, that's just like pure not thinking.
Right. And that's why they say, go ahead, send out $2,000 stimulus checks to everybody. What's that do for them?
It just balances it out, yeah.
Not even. If their prices are going up. Right?
Yeah, it's just a lack of, that's just stupidity.
And not to be insulting, but what's $2,000 going to buy somebody with rent that's $2,500
Here's a question, though. Can the president say, well, I'm going to do this, but legally these companies cannot add... can he tell the companies you can't do that? You can't add 85,000.
8,500. Well, he could do an executive order. But how are you going to do that? Are you going to say all companies, car companies? Are you going to single out
just the electric ones?
The green ones? Yeah. Right. I mean, now you're getting into, and you would think that would wind up in court because some car companies are going to say, hey, they don't care. People are going to buy their cars and they're making $1,000. Well, they're making 8,500. Right? But to your point, if you say you can't raise your prices, you can't, now you're going to have the car company saying, you can't tell us that we can't raise our prices. This is America. All of a sudden they're going to care about,
Right. Do you have any other political ones? Or?
No, that was my last political one.
Just because I feel like we've already bored everyone with politics. We just went on for like an hour.
This one I want to ask you about because I'm trying to understand.
Is that the YouTube one?
Perogi? Perogi?
Let's wait on that one.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about, but
Okay.
I want to get these Bitcoin ones out of the way real fast because the Bitcoin one, huge deals in Bitcoin as of this week. So, or cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Bitcoin mining company sells 26,200 rigs to eliminate 67 million debts. It's almost like $1 million in debt. Sorry. It's almost like this is getting worse. We went from selling power to selling, we went from selling crypto, so actual Bitcoin, to selling power to now selling machines to get rid of debts. It's a trickle down system. The problem with this, now, 26,000 miners is an insane number of miners to get rid of a debt, but I think we're officially at the point in crypto, especially Bitcoin.
Let me ask you a question. What is their debt? The machines that they purchased to mine the crypto?
Their debt is probably how much electricity they're using. So the amount of electricity versus how much they're making back isn't making sense. Like, it just doesn't financially make sense. So I think we are officially at the point right now where the more miners you have, the less you're gonna do. You're not gonna do very well because. Hold on, let me explain this a little better. So the power draw that they are using, the amount of electricity, the price, is higher than the amount of money they're making in Bitcoin, which is insane. Like, I never thought we were going to get to this point until at least 20 years from now. But because of the hard dip that we have right now, to be selling that many miners, we're officially at the point where if you are a big company, like a huge company that has hundreds of thousands of crypto miners, you are going to lose money. That's how bad it's gotten. Now, this is good for us gamers because that means chips, better chips for us, or more chips. But it's a good thing because if you do want to get into crypto mining, right now is probably the time where you want to get a couple rigs because now you are able to somewhat compete with these big companies because they're going to take a big financial loss. This is where you're going to be able to actually make some money if you wanted to. So I thought that was pretty cool. But it leads into another article, so we're going to think of these two as one article.
I can't have an opinion about that because I don't know I have to see financials for companies to say if it would be worth it for somebody on a small scale. And your product is, you can't set the price of your product. The market does.
You can't set
Right. So 1 week I could be making a lot of money, and then a week later, nothing.
Right. But with the reason I bring that up, so Bitcoin going down, is because Ethereum had a huge change last week.
Okay.
So they went from what's called proof of work to proof of stake. They're calling it Ethereum 2.0. Do you know the difference between?
No.
Okay, good, because I need to explain it to everyone. Okay. Everyone, buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. Now, I'm going to do this in as layman terms as possible, but Bitcoin is what is called proof of work. It's based off of proof of work. Basically, that means that you need computers to be doing algorithmic calculations in order to get a Bitcoin. Proof of stake is usually proof of stake's weird because it's the same concept but with different features. So the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum is that the way Ethereum is set up, I could start my own coin called Pancake Coin based off of the Ethereum coin.
Okay.
It's very dicey. Like, it's very weird how it works. But now they're going to more of a proof of stake. You used to be able to use GPU miners as well. So, like, a GPU, like, to mine Ethereum. You can do the same thing with Bitcoin, but it's not as efficient. Normally, you would use a computer GPU for Ethereum. Now that we could do a proof of stake, it makes the price of GPUs go down, which is nice, but it also makes Ethereum a little more dicey. And the reason that is because as well as Ethereum being a coin, it's also a security system, which is interesting. So the reason it's a security system is when I make a new coin, again, I'm trying to do this in layman's terms so everyone understands. If I try to make a new coin, I don't want to start from scratch. I just want to remake the coin, right? Sorry about that. Our dog's very needy and very needs mom's attention at all times. So where was I? So
Says the guy who has his mother on his podcast.
Oh, yeah, good point. Fair point. So I don't remember where I was, but basically
Ethereum is very dicey because it's being based off of Bitcoin.
Okay, nope. You screwed it. You screwed it.
The value of Bitcoin.
It has nothing to do with Bitcoin.
Okay.
You screwed it. See?
That's what she said.
Idiot.
Hey,
Idiot.
hey, it's your mother.
Get it together, Mom. So Bitcoin's its own thing. You're thinking Bitcoin has nothing to do. Oh, hello, you're back.
Ethereum was dicey.
Ethereum is dicey because they have all these security protocols, right? So the reason it's nice is because they have the security. When you do proof of stake instead, you lose those security measures. So now if I'm a coin that wants to, I want to start a new coin off the Ethereum blockchain, I have to use their security parameters. But if they don't have the same security parameters as before, why would I want to start a new coin knowing that there's going to be problems?
Right.
So because of that, Ethereum just plummeted last week, or as of yesterday, I think.
Ouch.
Yeah, which is not good.
Not good.
But if you do want to make a new coin, and you do want to go through that kind of, like, the nice thing about this is that you don't have to deal with the electricity aspects anymore, because you're taking a piece of Ethereum that's already made.
Okay.
Right? So there's a certain amount of Ethereum. I want to take out 100,000 Ethereum so that I can create my pancake coin.
Right.
And then that way, you pay what's called a gas price. So basically, it's a kind of like a tax. It's kind of like the Ethereum tax.
Is your pancake coin shaped like a pancake?
I would like that.
It would be nice,
Just,
right?
yeah,
with like a butter square in the middle.
Yeah, or and then a P. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting because Ethereum is really the only. It's funny because Ethereum's very different from Bitcoin, but it's arguably its biggest competitor. It's like trying to compare LeBron James to Derek Jeter. You know, it's like that different.
Why do I hear like Kenny screaming right now in Miami?
Oh yeah, Kenny's like, what the fuck is he talking about? Oh yeah, like putting it in layman's. It's so hard. Kenny's like, what's Chris saying? But yeah,
he's having like a mini stroke.
Honestly,
right now.
I'm gonna keep this
Kenneth,
argument.
calm down.
Yeah. Kenny comes home like next week or something. I might just save this article for next week. But Kenny can explain a lot better because But I feel like I gave the layman's terms. Just know that for you who's not interested in any crypto stuff, GPU prices are going to continue to plummet because we don't have to deal with proof of work anymore.
Okay.
So that's good for all of us.
Right.
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Because
did somebody tell Henry Cavill so he doesn't have to make his own PC?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Times must be tough in the DC comic.
Yeah.
Well,
he's not even Superman
anymore. T-shirt
yeah. They don't even they don't even do Superman anymore. It's just like okay man.
It was like pictures of my kids in the basement making their computers. Oh jeez.
What's your
So mine was Perogi.
Give me the. I don't know this person.
YouTuber Perogi targets scammers with scammer payback channel. So
I think I know.
He's been contacting
scammers,
YouTube scammers. And by calling them, calling into them, having conversations and keeping them like prank calling them, somehow he manages to get money back for people.
Oh, yeah.
To the tune of $4.2 million so far.
Yeah, I see it. So Scammer Payback is the name of the channel.
Right. But so I'm kind of trying to understand. So I assume YouTube scammers, you know, they scam people out of money.
It's not YouTube scammers. So he's the channel. He's just a YouTuber that decided to. So here's how this works. There was a guy made this famous a couple years ago, doing this. He was like a former CIA hacker or something like that. He's a really funny dude who would basically pretend to be like an old person using a voice changer, and he would let people get into his computer. You create what's called a virtual workspace on your computer.
Okay.
And he lets people hack.
4.2 billion. I said million.
Yeah.
Billion.
So. But a guy made this very famous a couple years ago, and then a lot of other big-time hackers kind of did the same thing, but they've taken it to a level where we're shutting down these scam organizations. Thank God. I don't know why they exist. Good. Like what? Like how the second.
But how does he get money back for people? What does he do? For that? Stop.
So what happens is they're able to. So the way they scam people, you can't just go into someone's computer and get bank account information. I mean, you could, but you'd have to be a complete moron to. Right. So what they do is they usually target older people, and then they say, "Hey, you just need to buy this $100 gift card from Google, So it's like a Google gift card.
Right.
And they get it. And then what happens is it converts it into like a QR code or like a code. Like, when you do like a redeem code?
Yes.
And what they do is, hey, can you read this back to me so that I can put it in for you? And they just take the money. That's the scam.
Oh.
Right? And older people tend to fall for that.
So how does he get the money back?
So it's funny how he does it. It's kind of complicated, but basically with the there's a lot of ways you could do it, but essentially he out-scams them and goes into their systems. This is what I like about YouTube, when people actually use their abilities. I mean, we're talking a high-level hacker who's able to outsmart these scammers. And again, I don't know, like, of all the things that the FBI should be doing, get on this.
Yes, I agree.
They're in like India, and they're always always trying to scam you. Like, the one that gets me the most, though, like the one that I'm surprised isn't being shut down every single day, they make identical websites to like Amazon. They'll make a completely... Remember that time where I almost got scammed?
I get so many scam messages
oh my God.
every day now.
Yeah.
I get it. Tracking
the fact that is not cracked down on, but you'll delete people for what they say is insane. Like, that's... prioritize that.
Even my bank, I get, from time to time, not as much, but fraud messages. They have a fraud section. I send it to them, if it's an email. You never hear anything back. I don't think they do it. It's just not cost effective for them to pursue it. But yet, a lot of people out there, especially elderly people, in all fairness, they can't see the difference between a fake email and a real email. They don't see them enough to know the difference. But even I'm surprised sometimes.
Oh yeah, everyone gets it. Yeah, same with prank. It's like phone calls.
Yeah. Phone
calls are another one. Like, the fact that of all the things that people get scammed, like, that's the thing that has to be shut down. Right. Like, I'm surprised no one does anything about
Remember that with your grandma? So, your grandfather one time called your father. He started the message with, "I'm going to assume that Kenny's not down in the Amazon kidnapped for ransom this week." So they try elderly people, and they know they connect with a name.
Yeah, and they just look it up and they figure it out. Yeah, It's not hard to figure out, especially now that everything's on the internet.
Right.
But...
Well, to the point where I had to say, "Mom, if anybody calls you and tells your grandchild has been kidnapped, call me first." Yeah. I think you should call me first before you send the money.
Yeah.
Even if they tell you don't call anybody, just send $5,000. So, yeah, it's amazing what they get away with. At least once a week I get a, "Dear beneficiary, why haven't you collected your $1 million inheritance yet?" Like,
I don't know how that's not cracked down 24/7.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones?
No, well, no, no, I don't. That's, you had 5 and I only had a few.
I got one more, and this is the biggest one I want to talk about. Andrew Tate is officially banned from Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Now, here's
you said Facebook, nobody cares about.
No one cares about Facebook, but Instagram and all that. But this is kind of fun. So let's go back real fast and explain who Andrew Tate is.
What was the coup de grace? What did he wind up doing? They
didn't like his point of view. That's why I want to talk. Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know who Andrew Tate is, I mean, he's the top G. Top G. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this guy. Like, I'm sure he's a nice dude in person or whatever. I'd have a sit-down conversation with him. But former 4-time world champion kickboxer, starts his university or whatever, and his Hustlers University. He's kind of... How do you describe this guy?
Head case.
He's not...
Arrogant, definitely.
Yeah, it's funny. He's clearly a very smart person.
Yes.
Who has... I don't think you can sit there. I think you have to move back. Because I don't know if this mic hits it from behind.
Okay, go ahead.
Gotta be careful. But he gets kicked... He's a very smart man who has an interesting take on a topic and is kind of able... Like, you're able to track his thought process to where you go... Makes sense, Yeah. He's very good about that. But he officially got taken down off Twitter, or off Facebook and Instagram, which is kind of a big deal. And my guess is he's going to get taken off TikTok too and all that stuff. But what's funny about this is, people don't know this, but he actually doesn't have any accounts. All of his accounts are run by other people.
Yeah.
Everything we see is a repost from someone else.
Right.
So I don't know what this means in the sense of, like, does that mean I get banned because I post something of Andrew Tate? Like, see how
don't they put a comment with all his stuff, so you can't, if you copy anything, it'll say this is currently unavailable?
Probably it might. I mean, I'm sure he has personal accounts, but like it's not for his Hustlers University or his podcast or anything.
Maybe he doesn't have personal accounts.
I think he does have an Instagram.
Oh,
He does have
okay.
an Instagram, like just a regular one, like just
Yeah.
what to show his friends and family or whatever.
Right.
But here's my problem with this. Now, this is kind of a sheer. This kind of proves the whole censorship thing, because as crazy as stuff as he says,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And we can all agree he says some wild stuff, whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
He's never done anything that he's never gone against terms and conditions. He's never done anything illegal. The only thing that people question is there's a whole thing about he was a sex trafficker, which ended up being false. He's proved his innocence on that. So this is a great example of someone being taken down because people didn't agree with what he said. Mm-hmm. There's no other reason as to why they took him down. Mm-hmm. And this is the hypocrisy of these websites, right? When they went to court, they said, "Hey, we are not targeting people for what they say. We only care if they're a threat." Right? He was not a threat. Right. Yeah, of course, he said some wild things, but nothing out of the ordinary of like wishing death on someone or something that went against the terms and conditions. Right. This was clearly Facebook and Instagram, they both are owned by Facebook. So this is Facebook or Instagram not liking what this guy had to say, and we're going to ban him. Yeah. And that's where I have a problem. That is the actual proof that we needed. That Alex Jones was one that you can make arguments of. Sure, maybe he did the Sandy Hook stuff. Maybe that was a problem where you should have someone banned. Maybe. Right. This was one that was pretty clear cut. Yeah, the guy's saying some stuff, but he's not doing anything that's harming people.
Well, Facebook, Twitter, the social media world are in a quasi realm where they originally, because of their size, they were not supposed to do editing other than extreme situations. Like a beheading, yeah. Right. They have taken that since the time of this president, and they have turned it into a platform where they feel they can censor. And they're doing it under the guise of, this is extreme content. You can't put this. It harms people. Similar to a beheading, if you will. Like it's yeah. And they've taken this to an extreme, which is why... And the
problem is, and this is where I have the biggest problem. Mark Zuckerberg said in court, we do not censor stuff if it's for no reason. It has to be something terroristic or whatever. And then they changed the rules just for this guy because they didn't like what he said, and they clearly
it's
blasted
not just
him.
For him.
Well, I'm just
a lot of people have been taken down.
This is like the clearest proof that you're banning someone for what they said. Oh. When you said we don't care about what they say, we only care about what they do. He has not done anything that warrants this. Like this is the biggest eye opener for me that if you were questionable before, this is your answer as to how Facebook really feels.
So for your generation who don't follow some of the individuals I do, namely some who are fighting the misinformation fight regarding our previous election. Yeah. It's a joke now. They laugh about how they're taken off. Oh, yeah, I'm banned for life. Some of them are individuals who are investors. They're not even anti-pro election, blah, 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 blah. They're just investors who are sounding the alarm of the vaccine or what's going on in China. So, and they're just, and they laugh. They're like, yeah, you're never going to find me on Twitter. I've been banned for life. Or Facebook, I've been banned for life.
But, and this is like, with COVID stuff, everyone was skeptical, right? There was like, is there shadow banning? Is there not? This, to me, is the real eye-opener of now we're at the point where it's dependent on what you say, and if we don't agree with it, you're going to be taken down. Because, again, besides his Hustlers University or whatever, which is a Discord thing, it's not illegal to promote a business. Right? It's not illegal to promote a business. If you want to fall for the scam, that's on you. Listen, I'm not saying it's a scam or not, but it's
not a threat to anyone if somebody comes up and says, President Biden won the election in 2020 fair and square. That's not a threat to me. I don't agree with it, but it's not a threat. Somebody comes and says, no, he did not win it. He's illegitimate, and this is why. That's not a threat either. Right. That's called First Amendment. Yeah. They're saying, no, that's a threat. You can't say, and these people are being banned. That's why you've seen during the course of, and for your generation, now you're seeing
Facebook argues, and then they go, well, we're we're a public company or private company, so we could do what we want.
And this is where we have a problem with these social media.
Exactly.
That's not what's supposed to be. And that's why a lot of Democrats and Republicans were saying we have to enact the Section 230, meaning if you do this to this individual and you're going to censor them, he has the right to sue you for doing that.
Yeah.
Right now, they don't have to, they have certain immunities because of them saying, well, we're an open platform. Yeah. They want it both ways. And, you know, Dorsey saw that coming, and he got out because he knew. Now we know Twitter is a real mess, but it's not even a real company.
He was
just
smart
all
to
bots.
Get out.
I think it's
it's at the point.
Bots.
Yeah, I'm 100% on. I talked about this on the live stream yesterday. Twitter, I think, is 100% bots. Like I don't know.
Or a very small
everything I post,
real.
something is all bots.
Right.
It's all bots.
Right, and that's hence why Musk pulled out of the deal. It's like they were, and he exposed the fraud that is Twitter.
Social media is bullshit. I actually think TikTok is probably the least bot accounted thing. Like, there's not really any.
TikTok is a China-owned company.
Right.
And you mentioned that, and I will say, this one, I saw this headline. I don't want to get into it, but Joe Biden enlists China-owned TikTok to partner with federal voting assistance programs in the 2022 midterm elections. It's like everything else, Chris. Nobody notices it until it hits them. He's a popular individual with your age group.
Interesting.
I had never heard of him until you guys told me about it.
Don't get me wrong. I would not say I agree with certain points that he says, and there's some kids that treat him as a god, which, again, I think he's just a normal human being. Well, he's not normal. He's an athlete. So
I don't know him, and I just know him for what you guys have been telling me. And
he's funny. He's a funny character, but
I don't find it a threat.
Yeah.
And I also don't believe in toxic masculinity. I mean,
how dare you?
Well,
he's the top GMO.
I absolutely don't agree with stuff that he says, but I'm a First Amendment person. I barely believe in hate speech, and that might cause a lot of trouble. But once you do things like hate speech, this is how we get to this point. Oh, he's a misogynist. It's hate speech. We're taking him off. Yeah. Or, if you're going to talk against the vaccine, that's hate speech.
At what point does it become jokes are not allowed on the internet? That's what it's gonna. That's the way we're going down. That's the route that we're taking here.
Well, many successful comedians now, as you've been seeing over the last few years, are coming out against the cancel culture because they're seeing what they're doing, and this has been going on. A few years ago, it started more in the political realm. And it's moving into social media, and they're taking it to an extreme where now comedy, everything's getting attacked. They're shooting themselves in the foot to the point where the Zuckerbergs of the world are pushing the envelope. How far can I take this? How much power can I have? He has a tremendous amount of power on this platform because he reaches so many people. And this is a perfect example of he took it too far. He's shooting the hands that feed him.
But he didn't take it too far. That's what I mean. I don't think he did anything that warranted
No, Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg.
I'm saying Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. Now they're starting to shoot themselves in the foot. This is their audience. Yeah. These young people.
I'm saying this is out of all the bans I've seen over the last 4 years, this is probably the most egregious one that was unwarranted. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with everything he says, and we have the right to agree or disagree on what is again, I'm sure if I talked to him in person, he's a nice dude, we'd get along fine.
Yeah.
But to ban him over just things that he said, not decapitations, not talking about certain things. Now, he has made some comments against...
And mind you, there are Ayatollahs out there that say every Jew should be murdered. They're allowed to stay on. But you take somebody... And this has been the problem, and now you guys are all starting to see it at your level. This has been going on for years, and now it's starting to hit home. And now you're going to start to see comparisons where he should speak out and say, how come somebody can make comments about murdering whole countries, taking out Israel, for instance, and vice versa, and I get banned because I make a joke about women or something? This is the unfairness that in our country, we don't allow that. They may allow it in foreign countries, but this goes as the cornerstone. People, it's our First Amendment, not the 10th even. This is the
given he does live in he does live in Romania.
I'm saying as an American platform or an American country, if they want to ban it in Romania, that's their business. But in America,
you should be allowed to stay on. Yeah, yes. Exactly.
So. Or it has to be balanced for everybody. You can't pick and choose what you think is either misinformation or violent information, and that's exactly what these social media platforms are doing.
This is by far the most egregious one I've seen. I hope they end up changing this. If they don't, I'd be very... I think a lot of people will be up in arms about this one. Not because they like Andrew Tate, but just because of the sheer fact that
many people your generation do like him. They think he's funny. They think he's
again, that's probably
mentality.
those. Yeah.
And,
I don't necessarily agree with everything he has to say. He's a funny dude. Some of the stuff he says is hilarious, but to ban him over this is baffling to me.
Right.
Until he did something like actually got found guilty for sex trafficking or whatever, then all of a sudden I'm okay with it.
Well,
but for words and what you have to say, which arguably could be a joke, that should never cause for your whole channel to be banned.
And by the way, it's also very insulting to the younger generation. I don't just mean yours. I just mean younger people. That they decide that what he's saying, you guys are going to be so influenced, you can't even see it.
Right.
It's so insulting that it was bad enough when they're saying, well, words hurt. Words do not hurt. They never have, they never will. Then people should choose them carefully, and they could try and hurt somebody with them. But him saying things that are wrong, and they're basically saying we must ban him. Not because he represents YouTube, no, because of the impressionable people that are going to see that, and they might be influenced by him.
Yeah. I don't think there's... The one good thing is the fact that he doesn't have his own personal accounts and stuff. He's going to be fine. He's still going to get the notoriety. He's not taken off of platforms. He's got his own YouTube channel and stuff. He won't be taken off YouTube.
See, know people like my generation. If he says stupid stuff, I'm never going to listen to him again. I don't care.
You just turn it off.
Right.
Yeah.
So
instead, they're going, ban him. Just ban everything he's ever done. Just ban it.
Well, because your generation, younger than my generation, let's say 20 years would be 30-year-olds and under, they're not going to turn it off. They think it's funny. They'll keep watching it, and he might actually start making sense to some of them. That's the message that they send when they ban things. They know my generation. We don't care. We're going to turn it off.
Yeah.
Your generation, they feel that they can mold your mind for better or worse.
Yeah.
That's why they selectively put things on there. And he's a threat. He shouldn't be a threat to anybody. If you don't like what he's saying...
I mean, he is a 4-time world champion kickboxer, though.
Right. Let's talk about kickboxing, fine. But this is what I'm saying. I mean, like I said, I've never heard of him. All you guys have heard of him, and you happen to find him very funny. I found some of the stuff he's found funny. I don't take it seriously, because it's ridiculous.
Exactly.
But that's the problem. Not too many people take some of this stuff too seriously.
Like when a guy says, "Hey, don't be friends with someone because they don't drink sparkling water," like that kind of stuff. Is that a bannable offense? Is that a bannable? I wouldn't say so.
No.
Right?
But it's again with First Amendment rights. It's not for us to say. They can, people.
But apparently Facebook and Instagram have that say.
Right.
They have the say to override First Amendment rights.
They're equating it to yelling fire in a building.
Yeah.
Right? That's how they judge this stuff. In the old days, people got literally a soapbox, stood in a corner, and said whatever they wanted to all day. If you didn't want to hear it, you kept walking. You laughed at them. You called them a joke. The only difference is now it's here, and they've decided, oh, no, you can't scream about whatever the topic of the day is, because that's a threat.
Yeah.
Who are they to decide what's a threat? That's why we formed this country. Say what you want. You should be allowed to. And most thinking Americans, when somebody says something ridiculous, you either find it funny or you walk away. But they've taken that right away from us because they're going to decide what we think is funny and what's improper. And that's not right.
But
so good luck to multi-millionaire Andrew Tate. Do we have to worry about where his next meal's going to come
That's
from?
what I mean. He's going to be fine financially and all that stuff, but... And you still see him around. I don't think that this ban really has anything to do with... I don't know how big he is on Instagram. I've only seen him on TikTok. But he'll be fine. But this was, the real eye-opener for me personally. I think a lot of people. Of, hey, Facebook's... you've lost your freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You've lost it. It's gone.
Welcome to our COVID election world.
Yeah, jeez.
This is how
let's not get banned on YouTube.
Well...
But...
I mean, that's the reality. Not me personally, but a lot of people out there have been complaining about this. Now you're seeing it in real time. Now they're taking it to the point of...
people who aren't political. Now
people who are not political. Yeah. Well, he's just somewhat political, but,
he doesn't focus on that.
Right.
Yeah,
it's it's ridiculous political. He's not trying
kinda
to make
a
statement.
Kind of like how I'm a gamer talking about politics. It's not... we're kind of the same realm. He doesn't...
It's not your... Stay in your lane, Chris.
Stay in my lane, yeah, exactly. But
Andrew's got to stay in his lane.
I think we're good. That was all my stuff. You got
okay. No, we're good.
Guys, the only thing I have to promote, what did I put out this week? Well, today's Saturday, so today is the Escape Room Simulator with Jason. Monday is the podcast. Don't know what we're streaming on Monday. I think we do Devil May Cry on Monday. So be there for that. Other than that, social media down below, promo codes down below, all the stream links down below, Discord down below for more questions. We didn't really get to do any questions today because it's been so long. We did too much. Yeah, we'll just end it there. So
Next time we'll do questions.
good job.
We should start with questions next time.
We probably should, but a lot of them are article based, as you can see.
Oh, while
So,
you're talking,
yeah, it's tough. So we'll go to that stuff. This podcast has already been like 2 hours. I didn't expect to go this long, but dear God,
Mom can talk.
we'll talk about that one next time because Zia sent this at a weird time. But
Okay.
we'll end it there. Good job, Mom.
Yep.